Welcome back, one and all, to Gaming Mysteries, the segment where you never expect to see a new Gaming Mysteries, so, surprise! And look, there's a lot of topics that we need to go over, but I feel that we should start off with some softballs. Some canceled softballs, some canceled Capcom softballs. Today on Gaming Mysteries, we'll be looking at some canceled Capcom games. Now, to start this off, I'm sure you all recall the Final Fight series. Classic beat 'em ups, but not as classic as Streets of Rage, don't at me. Still classics nonetheless, though. And like many other game franchises, it too would try to make the eventual jump to the third dimension. Despite the issues recreating that classic 2D beat 'em up style for modern hardware. Regardless, Capcom still made the attempt, announcing Final Fight 7 Sons for the PlayStation 2, which would be the fourth entry into the series. The game would star everyone's favorite Final Fight character who never was given an official name, who is my original OC, and do not steal him. The game would also feature a nice new palette of cel-shaded visuals and a more cartoony vibe, which looks beautiful if we can just take a moment to really appreciate this. There also seems to be a lot of care put into the actual combat of the game, looking a lot of fun, and also looking as though the hits on enemies really leave an impact, which is ideal for a beat 'em up. I love it. They were even able to imitate that classic 2D gameplay in a 3D space, harkening back to its classic roots. So it sounds like, and it looks like, and it is fun, and seems amazing. So what could possibly go wrong? Corporate, evidently, and also a miscommunication, but I'm going to mainly blame corporate, because way to go. They told the developers, more or less, that while the game is fun to play, it was not visually suited for its core audience. Let's ignore the insanity of that statement. This game is really fun, but we don't think no one's gonna buy this because it looks cartoony and it's just idiots. Anyways, I don't know if this was a jab at the cell shading hating that was going on at the time, because this was around Wind Waker, but either way, the team working on the game ended up accidentally perceiving that message as them just straight up not liking the visuals at all, which, maybe they didn't, leading them to continue with the brawler style that they had already been working on for the game, but with a theme that American gamers could theoretically appreciate, like flags and hot dogs. This turned that beautiful, cel-shaded, glorious game, which had been more true to the original series origins, into a drab, gritty, lifeless brawler that, while it is still fun to play, seeing what Streetwise is compared to what Seven Sons was supposed to be is just a depressing reminder that corporate suits ruin everything that they touch. Now it's time for the lighthearted intermission of the video, known as the Capcom 5 and its casualty, Dead Phoenix, the only canceled game of the Capcom 5. Though I suppose I should give a brief rundown on what the Capcom 5 was, so Cliffish notes here. Capcom planned on developing 5 exclusive games for the Nintendo GameCube, something pretty big considering Nintendo had lost a ton of third-party support with the N64. Mind you, the plan fell through, as shortly after the release of PN03, the first of the Capcom 5, which saw mixed reviews and didn't really sell that well, despite being an okay-ish game, Capcom shifted gears, saying that only Resident Evil 4 would be a GameCube exclusive. And it's my favorite GameCube exclusive because it's the only one I can play on literally every other console ever made. But unlike Resident Evil 4, which would remain a GameCube exclusive for the rest of its lifespan, Beautiful Joe and Killer 7 were off to better pastures on the PlayStation 2, where they would still not sell very well. And this all left us with Dead Phoenix. So, what happened to Dead Phoenix? They just canceled it. Didn't really talk about it that much, just kind of swept it under the rug like this never happened, and neither did Mega Man Legends 3. And frankly, you can't prove it, and that's just the reality we live in, sadly. I recall not seeing footage from the game until later in the GameCube's life cycle, and from what I could gather, it looked like Capcom took the all-range mode from Star Fox 64 and like Drakengard or something involving dragons and like a little bit of Dynasty Warriors and like smushed them together, and he had this big cannon arm thing and it looked really cool. And honestly, I thought it was going to be one of the best GameCube exclusives. Granted, I was young and foolish, but it looked cool if nothing else. Sadly for me, by the time I had actually seen this trailer, the game had long since been canceled back in like 2003, which just baffled me. I could not, for any logical reason at the time, or even now to some extent, well, I mean, yes, kind of, but not the point, understand why they would cancel this project. So, I'm going to throw my theories at the wall and we're going to see what sticks. For one, the Capcom 5 was a complete failure. The first title, PN03, sold poorly, and as great as Killer 7 and Beautiful Joe were and still are, last time I checked, neither sold that well at all, either on the GameCube or the PlayStation 2. I saw Killer 7 on clearance for $20 a few weeks after it was first released. In the meantime, while Capcom is failing to sell games, Resident Evil 4 is going through a development hell like none other before, so I suspect that they just didn't have faith in another new IP, in this case Dead Phoenix, and why pour resources into such an unknown entity when they could be better spent perfecting something that you know will sell, like a Resident Evil game. And in that regard, considering they've been doing nothing but failing in this situation, it's a smart move. Still depressing that we lost a game, sure, but I mean, it was for the better of Leon S. Kennedy and his hair, so frankly, I'll take the L. And now, to round things out, how about a little Dino Crisis? Just to remind everyone that there hasn't been one of those made for a really long time. And since Capcom is currently on a roll, have somebody get on that. And also maybe a new Vampire Savior, because that'd be great. But Dino Crisis had not one, but count 'em, two Game Boy games planned, both of which seem to cover all your bases, one being a top-down recreation of the game, with no footage whatsoever ever released to my knowledge, although the developers of the game would later go on to make Resident Evil Gaiden, which would feature a similar gameplay system to this Dino Crisis game for the Game Boy, so we could just use footage for that as a replacement of sorts. The reason for its cancellation, however, there really wasn't one, to my knowledge. If I had to guess, I would assume perhaps the transition of this PlayStation 1 dinosaur game to the Game Boy didn't go super smoothly, or more likely, perhaps they just swapped the IP to Resident Evil because, I mean, it's a more popular series and thus would sell more copies. Although it's kind of hard to say because they won't admit it. As for the second game, again, no footage, although we do have some neat screenshots, and this is very interesting. Again, it was meant to recreate Dino Crisis. However, unlike the other Dino Crisis Game Boy title, which wasn't really pushing the system too hard, these games went the route of that canceled Resident Evil port for the Game Boy, where they tried to go for a one-to-one recreation of the game, emulating that original game as best as possible on the hardware. Ambitious? Yes, but crazy also. The game was to feature 4 playable characters, 5 types of dinosaurs, and 7 maps with 100 rooms in total. So why cancel such an ambitious project? For that very same reason, I'm assuming. It's like with the Resident Evil port. Is it impressive that they were able to do this entire game just on a Game Boy? Yes, it is. Does it look pretty in motion or even good? Not especially. I mean, you can appreciate the effort, like brava, but I mean, it's not something I would want to play because the sad reality is it's just too much for the hardware. But that was some canceled Capcom games, or two canceled games and then two half canceled games that were reworked in the new game. Close enough. As always, a shame in most cases that we lost some potentially great titles, but time heals all wounds. And while Final Fight and Dead Phoenix seem dead, I mean, really, I have heard rumblings that there may be a new Dino Crisis on the horizon, and since Capcom has been on such a roll lately, I really hope we see it happen, because that, frankly, would be better than both of those Game Boy games combined. Make them look like trash by comparison. So get on that, Capcom. I love you. Thank you for not screwing up so much anymore. But this has been Gaming Mysteries. Thank you for watching. Well, howdy, everyone, and welcome back to End Slate, where the least thing you expect to see at the end of Gaming Mysteries is an End Slate. Long time no see. I'm sorry about that. Mid-October, had a little bit of a mental breakdown. Luckily, it didn't last as long as that last one. So yeah. I hope you've all been well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Got some more in the pipeline, as well as some other plans that I'm not going to divulge to you right now, because this is not an update video, it's an End Slate. And we all know what End Slate is all about. It's about talking about Kamen Rider, but mostly it's about... Oh wait, I have to do the social media I'm sorry. Oh, I almost said a no word. Kill me. Anyways, so I have social media, believe it or not. I have a YouTube, and I have a Twitter, it's Yuri of Wind, and I have a Twitch, which is Yuri of Wind. I have a Facebook, which is Yuri of Wind. Common theme. If you want to check any of those out, free to do so. And Nico does the art, technically. And I think that about covers it, which means it's time for the part of the video that I've been waiting for, and I know you've been waiting for. You see, it's been so long since I've thanked these wonderful people, these wonderful supporters of mine. And there's no way I can ever possibly thank them enough. But I'm gonna try. And we're gonna do Patreon thank you ASMR. So thank you Phantom Ganon, and thank you Michaela, thank you Whitman. I'm not gonna do this every time, don't worry. Thank you Geraldo. Twitch. Patreon changed the look of this, so now I can't read everyone's names correctly, or the longer ones, I mean. But thank you Gerardo Echeverra. Thank you Lucas. Thank you Deshaun Lewis. Thank you Skinny 720 and Anal Bag. That sounded weird to say this close to the mic. Thank you Queen Sapphire and Snooper. Thank you Thousand Freckles and Matt Sinclair, Gothic Villain, the Pie Man. Oh, it's the best man. Thank you, Hey It's Brad. Thank you, Yuri's Fat D. Thank you, Bradley Harder and Antonio and Guano. I'm trying. I'm not good at that. Thank you, Cube Rider and Mark Ryan, Lily Starflame, Nikki Layman, Nolan, Crunchy Face. Oh, thank you, Fernando Silva. Seriously, thank you so fucking much. Thank you. Where was that? Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Andrew Arana. Oops. Thank you, Kenpachi Ramasama. Thank you, John Casina. John Cena. Damn it. Thank you, John Garcia. Thank you, Michael Holder II and Arya, Ragnar the Green. Shoutouts to holding down the fort over on the Discord. Thank you, Dylan Swenson. Thank you, Wilg. Thank you, David Martinez. Thank you, An Evil Ghost. What are you doing here? I don't recall. Did Tom send? Thank you, Zelios. Thank you, Snoopy Spirit. Thank you, Tropic. And John Mayer. Or should I say Magical Weatherman? Sorry. Thank you, Kirsten Solo, Mio Bunny, Shuckster, Painful Choice, isn't it? It's always. Just Plain Jason. Not to be confused with Jason or Exciting Jason. This is Just Plain Jason. It's a Jason you can appreciate, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Milquetoast MF. And thank you to Dislig. That's impossible to pronounce. Thank you, S. It's the letter. Thank you, the Club Rocker. Thank you, the Prince of Ravens. Had to check. Thank you, Lily Bunny and Scott LaBar. Des, a.k.a. is that. Hold on. So, thank you, Andy DeFora and Common Tree Sean. Thank you, Radar, Jiggly Turbo, Kamimon. Thank you, Zachary Alexander. There we go. It wasn't loading in time. Thank you, Sick White Tiger. How's it going? Thank you, Michael P. Thank you, Elfrey684. Thank you, Johnny Von Tungen. Thank you, John Paul Hoare and Mr. Mohawk. The wheels on the bus go die, die, die. Andrew Silverman. And thank you, Greg Wolf and Mr. Bowler, Minio Kuroshima, Angel Blaine, M Gamers, Eric Camacho, Ryan Cole. The R9 and RE4 is still a great weapon. Thank you, Problematic, Abdul Karim Torres, Nikki Patelli, Escape Route British, Jameson Wiley, Friend Carrick, Arpie Spies, Link the 8th, Just Saying, good name, and everyone else who chose to support me on Patreon. How long did this go for? Only 6 minutes, even with me doing ASMR. That's not bad. That is not bad. Or it's around 7 minutes. Still, that is not bad, even though this is basically the length of the entire video, so I should probably shut up. But it's good to be back, everyone. I'm on new antidepressants and new I'm on different anti-anxiety medication. I've been streaming more. I have videos up the pipeline. I just made a video right now. Let's Plays are coming back. I have a stream archive thing working out. At some point, I'd like to do covers of songs. Lots of stuff I have planned for 2020, including even maybe another mental breakdown. Who's to say? But I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe. I love you all. Whether you're a patron or just someone who's viewing this video, you know, unless you're a jerk or something like that. Otherwise, I don't love you. But everyone else, I love you. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time on this wild, crazy ride that I like to call the internet.